The unexpected transmission. The Atacama Desert stretched out like a vast, lifeless canvas, its rust-colored terrain broken only by the gleaming white dome of the Stellar Horizon Research Station. Inside, Elena Rodriguez hunched over a bank of sophisticated radio telescopes, her fingers dancing across holographic displays with practiced precision. The late-night silence was her closest companion, interrupted only by the soft hum of advanced computing equipment and the occasional distant howl of desert wind. At 32, Elena had dedicated her life to searching for something most of her colleagues considered impossible: definitive proof of extraterrestrial intelligence. Where others saw static and background noise, she saw potential, hidden patterns waiting to be deciphered. Her colleagues at the International Research Facility had long since stopped challenging her unconventional methods, recognizing her exceptional talent for detecting anomalies that others missed. The digital clock read 2:37 when the first unusual signal began to pulse across her monitors. Most researchers would have dismissed it as interference, but Elena's eyes narrowed, her breathing slowing as she zoomed in on the wavelength. Something was different. The signal carried a rhythmic complexity that defied random generation, its harmonics suggesting an intelligence behind its transmission. "Come on," she whispered, adjusting the signal filters. "Show me what you're trying to say." The signal grew more intense, a delicate dance of electromagnetic waves that seemed to pulse with an almost mathematical precision. Elena's heart raced as she realized this was no ordinary astronomical noise. Each wave carried encrypted information, layered in a pattern that suggested deliberate communication. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, initiating multiple cross-reference protocols. The station's quantum computers began analyzing the signal, comparing it against thousands of known astronomical and terrestrial communication databases. Minutes stretched into an hour, the tension in the small research room growing with each passing moment. Suddenly, a breakthrough. A fragment of decrypted data flickered across her secondary screen, a set of coordinates that didn't match any known celestial mapping system. They pointed to a location deep within the Atacama Desert, barely 50 kilometers from her current position. "That's impossible," Elena muttered, her scientific skepticism warring with a growing sense of excitement. The coordinates were too precise, too deliberately placed to be a random occurrence. A secondary transmission began to overlay the initial signal. This time, the pattern was different, more urgent, more structured. Elena activated the station's advanced linguistic decryption algorithms, watching as fragments of an unknown language began to take shape. "Help. Stranded. Critical mission." The words were simple, but their implications were profound. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate a dire situation. Elena knew the risks of jumping to conclusions, but years of research had taught her to follow the evidence, no matter how improbable it seemed. She initiated the station's emergency communication protocols, sending encrypted messages to her supervisors and a select network of trusted colleagues. If this was real, she would need support. If it was a mistake, she'd rather be cautious than dismissive. The desert outside seemed to hold its breath. Elena checked her equipment, ensuring every sensor was calibrated, every recording mechanism active. Whatever was happening, she was determined to capture every single detail. A soft vibration began to emanate from the external sensor arrays. Something was approaching the research station, something that was definitely not a natural phenomenon. The ground sensors indicated a massive energy signature, unlike anything in the geological or meteorological records. Elena's hand hovered over the emergency beacon. Protocol demanded she alert international authorities, but something held her back. The transmission felt personal, almost like a desperate plea rather than a threat. As the first light of dawn began to paint the desert's horizon, a low humming sound began to build. The research station's sophisticated equipment started to register massive energy fluctuations. Something was coming, something that would change everything she understood about humanity's place in the universe. Outside, the first hints of an extraordinary arrival began to take shape against the stark landscape of the Atacama Desert. Elena Rodriguez stood at the window, her years of scientific training battling with an unprecedented sense of anticipation and fear. Whatever was about to happen would challenge everything she knew about science, communication, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. The transmission continued, its message now crystal clear: help is needed. The mission depends on it. Secrets of the Stellar Cipher. The high-security conference room of the International Research Facility in Santiago buzzed with controlled tension. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display, her hands steady despite the scrutiny of the assembled experts. To her right, Dr. Marcus Reyes, a cryptography specialist with salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing, studied the transmission data with laser-like focus. "The signal is unlike anything we've ever encountered," Elena explained, her voice calm and professional. A three-dimensional representation of the alien transmission rotated slowly, its complex geometric patterns defying traditional communication models. Dr. Reyes leaned forward, his fingers tracing the holographic lines. "These aren't just random wave patterns," he muttered. "There's a deliberate mathematical structure here. It's almost like a language built on quantum probability." The room fell silent. International research teams from multiple disciplines had been called in: linguists, physicists, mathematicians, and communication experts. Each brought their unique perspective to the mysterious transmission Elena had captured in the Atacama Desert. "We've isolated several key components," Elena continued, zooming in on specific sections of the transmission. "These recurring geometric patterns suggest a communication system that operates simultaneously across multiple dimensional frequencies." A younger researcher, Dr. Elena Volkov from the Russian Space Research Institute, spoke up. "It's reminiscent of quantum entanglement principles, but far more complex. The signal suggests an intelligence capable of communicating through probabilistic wave functions." Dr. Marcus Reyes nodded, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "I've been running comparative analyses. These transmission patterns don't just carry information, they seem to adapt and modify themselves based on the reception environment." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a message, it was a living, adaptive form of communication that could potentially reshape human understanding of language and information transfer. Suddenly, the holographic display flickered. A series of complex geometric symbols began to form, unlike any known mathematical or linguistic notation. The room went dead silent as the symbols pulsed with an ethereal blue light. "It's responding," Elena whispered, her heart racing. Dr. Reyes approached the display, his professional composure momentarily cracking. "This is impossible. The transmission is creating an active dialogue with our analysis systems." A voice emerged, not through speakers, but directly within the minds of everyone in the room. "Fragmented, yet unmistakably intelligent. Sequence incomplete. Critical mission parameters require immediate intervention." The voice carried no discernible gender or emotional tone, yet it conveyed an urgent sense of purpose that sent chills down the spines of the assembled researchers. Elena stepped forward. "Who are you? What is your mission?" The geometric symbols rearranged themselves, forming a complex three-dimensional structure that seemed to pulse with its own internal energy. "I am Narake. Navigator. Carrier of critical stellar cartography. Stranded. Seeking assistance." Dr. Reyes's hands moved rapidly across his interface, attempting to capture and analyze every nuance of the communication. The linguistic structure suggests a communication system built on probability waves rather than sequential language. It's adapting in real time to our cognitive reception patterns. The room erupted in a controlled chaos of speculation and scientific excitement. This was more than first contact. This was a potential revolution in understanding interstellar communication. Elena noticed something peculiar. The transmission seemed to be focusing specifically on her, its geometric patterns subtly shifting whenever she moved or spoke. "Why me?" she asked quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. The response came not through the holographic display, but as a sudden, intense mental impression. A series of navigational coordinates, a desperate sense of mission, and an underlying current of profound urgency. "The stellar cartography must be preserved," the voice, Narake, emphasized. "Your planet stands at a critical convergence point. The mission cannot fail." Dr. Reyes interrupted, his scientific skepticism fighting against the overwhelming evidence. "We need more information." "What mission? What convergence point?" The holographic display began to break down, the geometric symbols fragmenting and reforming in increasingly complex patterns. It was as if the transmission itself was struggling to maintain coherence. "Limited communication channels," Narake's mental voice explained. "Risk of detection increasing. Require immediate physical interface to complete critical data transfer." Elena exchanged a look with Dr. Reyes. They were both thinking the same thing. This was far beyond a simple first contact scenario. Something much larger was at stake. As the research team continued to analyze the transmission, none of them noticed the subtle changes happening around them. Electronic devices flickered. Quantum sensors registered impossible energy fluctuations. And outside the secure research facility, something was stirring, a cosmic preparation for a revelation that would challenge everything humanity understood about its place in the universe. The transmission ended as suddenly as it began, leaving behind more questions than answers. One thing was certain, Elena Rodriguez and her team were now at the center of a mystery that would reshape human understanding of existence itself. The quantum convergence. The Quantum Research Laboratory in Cape Town pulsed with an electric anticipation. Dr. Imani Okeke adjusted her holographic interface, her dark eyes reflecting the complex mathematical models dancing across the room's transparent screens. Elena Rodriguez stood beside her, a portable data module from the Santiago Research Facility clutched tightly in her hand. "These quantum signatures are unprecedented," Dr. Okeke muttered, her fingers tracing intricate patterns across the holographic display. The transmission from Narake had evolved, transforming from a simple communication into a multidimensional puzzle that defied conventional scientific understanding. Elena watched as the quantum models shifted and transformed. The geometric symbols they had captured in Santiago now revealed themselves as something far more complex, a living mathematical language that seemed to breathe and adapt with each analysis. "It's not just a message," Elena explained to Dr. Okeke. "It's a complete information system that restructures itself based on the observer's cognitive patterns." Dr. Okeke nodded, her years of quantum physics research preparing her for this moment. "Look here," she said, zooming in on a particularly intricate section of the transmission. "These quantum entanglement patterns suggest a communication method that exists simultaneously across multiple potential realities." The laboratory's advanced sensors began to react strangely. Quantum fluctuations that should have been impossible started to manifest, subtle shifts in probability, microscopic breaches in what scientists had long considered immutable physical laws. A sudden burst of energy swept through the laboratory. The holographic displays flickered, and for a brief moment, the room seemed to exist in multiple states at once. Elena felt a strange sensation, as if she were simultaneously present and not present. "Convergence initiated," a voice echoed, not through speakers, but directly within their minds. Narake's presence was more intense now, less fragmented. Dr. Okeke's professional composure cracked. "This is beyond quantum communication," she whispered. "This is quantum manipulation of reality itself." The transmission began to take a more concrete form. Navigational charts appeared, not of terrestrial or even galactic maps, but of something far more complex. Dimensional pathways that wound through realities, showing points of critical intersection. "Your planet," Narake's mental voice explained, "sits at a unique quantum nexus. A point where multiple potential futures converge. Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. What does that mean? What's so special about Earth? The response came not in words, but in a rush of sensory information. Glimpses of potential futures flickered through their minds, some of technological utopia, others of complete destruction. Humanity balanced on a knife's edge of possibility. A critical moment approaches, Nara K continued. Your species stands at a quantum bifurcation point. The choices made in the next solar cycle will determine multiple potential evolutionary paths. Dr. Okeke's hands moved furiously across her interface, attempting to capture and analyze the incoming information. These are more than predictions, she muttered. These are quantum probability projections with an accuracy that shouldn't be possible. The laboratory's equipment began to react more violently. Quantum sensors went haywire, measuring impossible energy signatures. The very fabric of reality seemed to ripple around them. Elena noticed something peculiar. The transmission was focusing more intensely on her with each passing moment. Quantum probability lines seemed to converge around her specific location, as if she played a unique role in the unfolding scenario. Why me? She asked, echoing her earlier question from the Santiago Research Facility. Nara K's response was both direct and enigmatic. Quantum resonance. Your cognitive pattern demonstrates unique adaptive capabilities. A bridge between potential realities. Dr. Okeke interrupted, her scientific mind fighting to maintain rational analysis. We need more concrete information. What exactly is this convergence? What choices are so critical? The transmission intensified. A three-dimensional quantum map unfolded before them, showing Earth not as a single point, but as a complex nexus of potential evolutionary paths. Some branches led to technological transcendence, others to complete environmental collapse. Your species approaches a fundamental choice, Nara K explained. A technological threshold that will determine not just your planet's future, but the stability of multiple dimensional realities. The laboratory began to experience strange quantum phenomena. Objects existed in multiple states simultaneously. Time itself seemed to become fluid, with moments stretching and compressing in impossible ways. Elena felt a profound sense of responsibility settling over her. Whatever was happening transcended typical scientific discovery. This was about the fundamental potential of human existence. As the transmission began to fade, one final message came through with crystal clarity: prepare. The convergence approaches. The choice will be yours. The quantum displays collapsed, leaving behind only fragments of the complex mathematical language. Dr. Okeke and Elena exchanged a look of shared understanding. Nothing would be the same after this moment. Outside the laboratory, the first hints of a global shift began to manifest. Subtle changes in communication networks, unexplained quantum fluctuations, a sense of imminent transformation that would touch every corner of human civilization. The quantum convergence had begun. Interstellar negotiations. The United Nations headquarters in New York had never witnessed a meeting like this. The General Assembly Hall, typically a place of measured diplomacy, now crackled with an unprecedented tension. Elena Rodriguez sat at the center of a semicircular table, her research documents displayed on holographic screens that seemed to float in midair. Ambassador Joaquin Vargas, a seasoned diplomat with salt and pepper hair and piercing brown eyes, leaned forward. Dr. Rodriguez, you're asking the world's governments to prepare for a quantum convergence that could fundamentally alter human civilization, based on a transmission from an unverified alien source. Elena met his gaze without flinching. Not just asking, she replied, her voice steady. Warning. Representatives from every major world power sat in tense silence. The quantum data captured by research teams in Chile, South Africa, and multiple international laboratories told a story both terrifying and miraculous. Humanity stood at the precipice of a fundamental transformation. A holographic display materialized, showing the complex quantum probability maps they had received. Potential futures branched out like intricate neural networks, some leading to technological transcendence, others to complete societal collapse. The transmission, Elena explained, is not just a message. It's a living mathematical system that adapts to our understanding. Narake, the entity behind these communications, is offering us a choice, but the parameters of that choice are complex beyond our current comprehension. Dr. Marcus Reyes, who had joined the delegation, interjected with a critical observation. What we've discovered goes beyond traditional first contact scenarios. This is a quantum-level communication that suggests the existence of multiple realities and our potential role in their stability. The Russian representative, a stern woman named Valentina Kozlov, spoke up. How can we trust something we cannot fully understand? This could be an elaborate deception. Before anyone could respond, the holographic displays began to shift. The geometric symbols from previous transmissions appeared, pulsing with an ethereal blue light. A mental presence filled the room, not invasive, but unmistakably present. Trust is a complex construct, Narake's mental voice resonated. Your species stands at a critical evolutionary junction. Ambassador Vargas looked around the room, noting the mixture of fear and fascination on his colleagues' faces. Explain, he demanded. The quantum display expanded, showing Earth as a complex nexus of potential futures. Technological pathways, environmental scenarios, societal transformations, all interconnected in ways that defied traditional linear thinking. Your planet, Narake continued, represents a critical point of quantum stability. The choices you make in the next orbital cycle will determine not just your future, but the fundamental structure of multiple dimensional realities. Elena stepped forward, her role becoming increasingly clear. We're not just talking about technological advancement, she explained. We're discussing a fundamental quantum choice that could stabilize or destabilize multiple potential realities. The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity was being asked to make a choice that transcended traditional understanding of progress, survival, and cosmic significance. Dr. Imani Okeke, joining the meeting via holographic link from Cape Town, provided critical scientific context. The quantum signatures suggest a convergence point where human technological potential could either create a dimensional bridge or cause a catastrophic reality fracture. Ambassador Vargas pressed for specifics. What exactly is this choice? What are the parameters? The holographic display began to show potential technological pathways. Sustainable energy solutions that went beyond current understanding. Communication technologies that could connect human consciousness in ways previously unimaginated. Environmental restoration techniques that could reverse centuries of ecological damage. The choice, Narake explained, is between continued fragmented development or a unified evolutionary leap. Your species must choose collective progress over individual competition. Diplomatic representatives began to argue. Some saw an opportunity for global cooperation, others saw a potential threat to national sovereignty. The room buzzed with tensions as old as human civilization itself. Elena realized her role was becoming clearer. She was more than just a researcher, she was a potential bridge between human understanding and this broader cosmic perspective. We need a global consensus, she said, her voice cutting through the diplomatic noise. This is bigger than any single nation or ideology. The quantum displays continued to pulse, showing potential futures that were both beautiful and terrifying. Technological marvels existed alongside potential extinction scenarios. The choice was stark and immediate. As the meeting continued, one thing became abundantly clear: humanity was being asked to evolve, not just technologically, but fundamentally as a species. The quantum convergence was no longer a theoretical concept, it was an immediate, pressing reality. Ambassador Vargas looked at Elena, then at the shifting quantum displays. How do we make a choice of this magnitude? he asked. Nara's final transmission for the moment was both a warning and a promise: the choice is yours. But choose wisely. The fabric of multiple realities depends on it. The meeting adjourned, but the real conversation was just beginning. Humanity stood at the most critical moment in its evolutionary history. The cosmic revelation. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. What began as a mysterious transmission in the Atacama Desert had transformed into a global moment of reckoning. Research stations, government facilities, and scientific centers around the globe were now interconnected, sharing data about the quantum convergence that Nara had revealed. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a global network, her role having evolved from a lone researcher to a critical bridge between humanity and a broader cosmic understanding. The quantum displays that had once been confined to isolated laboratories now connected multiple continents, creating a living, breathing map of human potential. In Cape Town, Dr. Imani Okeke coordinated advanced quantum research. In Santiago, Dr. Marcus Reyes continued decrypting the complex mathematical language of the transmission. And in New York, Ambassador Joaquin Vargas worked to maintain the delicate global consensus that had begun to form. The choice was becoming clearer, yet no less challenging. Nara's transmissions had revealed a fundamental truth: humanity stood at a critical evolutionary junction. The quantum probability maps showed multiple potential futures, some of technological marvel, others of complete destruction. But the key was not in choosing a specific path, but in choosing a collective approach to progress. Unified consciousness, Dr. Okeke explained during a global symposium, is not about losing individual identity. It's about creating a collaborative framework that allows for collective problem-solving while maintaining individual creativity. The technological breakthrough was both simple and profound. The quantum communication system Nara had introduced allowed for a new form of global connectivity. Not through traditional communication networks, but through a deeper, more fundamental quantum resonance. Research facilities around the world began to demonstrate the potential. Environmental restoration projects that had seemed impossible now became viable. Sustainable energy solutions emerged that could transform global infrastructure. Medical breakthroughs promised to eliminate diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. But the real transformation was happening on a deeper level. People began to experience subtle changes. A heightened sense of global empathy. An intuitive understanding that transcended traditional communication barriers. The quantum resonance was creating a new form of collective intelligence that respected individual identity while promoting global cooperation. Elena found herself at the epicenter of this transformation. The quantum probability lines that had initially converged around her now seemed to extend to a global network. She was no longer just an observer or a researcher, she was a catalyst. The choice, Nara's mental voice resonated globally, is not about a single moment of decision. It is about a continuous process of collective evolution. Ambassador Vargas articulated the global consensus during a United Nations special session. We are not just choosing a technological path, he declared. We are choosing a new way of existing. A way that recognizes our interconnectedness with each other and with the broader cosmic environment. The quantum displays showed the potential futures more clearly now. Technological advancement that didn't come at the cost of environmental destruction. Scientific progress that prioritized collective well-being over individual or national gain. A fundamental reimagining of human potential. Dr. Marcus Reyes, analyzing the final transmissions, made a profound observation. Nara isn't just sharing information, he explained. The transmission itself is a form of evolutionary catalyst. It's creating the very conditions necessary for our collective transformation. Global leaders, scientific researchers, and citizens alike began to understand the true nature of the choice. It wasn't about a single decision, but about a fundamental shift in consciousness. A recognition that human potential was far greater than previous generations had imagined. Schools began to modify curricula. Businesses restructured to prioritize collective innovation. Government started to see beyond national boundaries, recognizing a more holistic approach to global challenges. As the final quantum resonance swept across the planet, Elena realized something profound. The transmission from Nara-K was never just about providing humanity with advanced technology. It was about showing humanity its own potential. The last transmission came not as words, but as a complex mathematical symphony that resonated through every quantum sensor around the globe. A message of hope, of potential, of a future limited only by collective imagination. The convergence is not an endpoint, Nara-K's final communication explained. It is a beginning. In research stations, government buildings, and homes around the world, people looked at each other with a new understanding. Something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer just a collection of individuals or nations. They were becoming something more.